Okay, so as we're chatting before the show, tell me what you were just about to say. This topic, proud of yourself.
This topic is something that I think about a lot. It's a big part of my like everyday dance, and I think it's very much in line with where I'm at right now and the things that I'm working on right now and the way that I'm going about life. Like to say, like, this is how I do life. This is the things I'm committed to, and so on. So, I mean, if you want to intro what we're talking
Well,
about,
no,
you're
I was curious for you to say that is interesting even because I had not conceptualized the concept until I don't know how long. I don't know if it was a year ago or whatever. And I wish I could go back to that exact moment. I think that it was me pondering some of my own actions, some of my own daily habits, and realizing that they were the value of them was the value of me feeling good about what I did was more valuable than the sum of the parts of what I was actually doing. Which this morning, in thinking about it, and how appropriate that you're here with me because you know exactly what I'm talking about here, it came to mind Joshua Spodek and Sidja,
yeah.
self-imposed daily challenging healthy activities. So if anybody hears that, and I've talked about this a lot of times, Joshua Spodek, Spodek, who Jared knows a lot. You know, you guys have had a friendship for a long time.
Mhm.
But I had him on a show years ago, not on the book that he had at the time or whatever the topic was, but I somehow found out about this blog at the time that he had written on Sitcha. That was his point, though. These self-imposed, daily, challenging, healthy activities. And if you type in Joshua Spodek Sidcha, Sidcha, you can find his blog. But that was his point. The things, you know, all these healthy things you do. You know, you get up in the morning, you take your cold shower, you do your devotions, you go exercise, you know, whatever all these things you do that are great, those are great in and of themselves. You get those values, but the bigger value is the mental training that you get from doing these things you do not have to do.
Yeah.
That's what got me. And so that's, you know, and so maybe this is the fruition of that, and me realizing that some of these things I do, okay, it's great that I go out, but I mainly do them, some of them, I just feel better about myself. And then it was the quick realization, and this is what I wanted to, you know, us to talk about and consider, that I see so many people, and maybe, not maybe, I'm gonna cite, posit that more so even in this world of self-help, personal development, whatnot, that I see so many of them, because now you're seeing the light of what, you know, you should do maybe, or what, you know, would be good for you. And if you don't, there may be more guilt involved than pride, and realizing, man, here we're going around. And when you don't feel proud about yourself, even with my kids, I've seen my older kids sometimes, you know, and they kind of know they should be doing this, but they just want to veg on the couch. They don't feel good about themselves. They're not feeling proud about themselves. So there was my premise, Jared. I will say, and you don't know this, I did post online. I posted a question to people, you know, just to the Facebook masses. What makes you feel proud of yourself? And had a lot of responses. But one of the first one, and I'll go ahead and knock this out. Kent Burr, he said, serious answer. I was raised that pride is something someone else has in you. There's always, you know, someone else doing more and better. And, you know, he talked about pride a little bit. I know that's a hot word for some people. And somebody else at one point said, okay, replace that with what gives you self approval, if that feels better than pride, if pride's a bad word.
I think I might have said, I tuned into the pride thing too,
Okay.
but
Okay.
I know what you mean by that because we have context and trust. um,
Well, yeah.
but I know what you mean by that. Yeah. And for anyone that feels that word's a little prickly, I think, yeah, what I was just sort of superimposing there was, um, what is it that makes you feel, yeah, I don't know if there is a better word for than pride, but it's the pride, meaning that you feel good about your actions. You feel as though those were in alignment with your values. And that's a very Josh Spodek thing to say too. Living by your values. That's what he talks about so much. And I feel
Okay.
like that's the things that I'm most quote unquote proud of, is in the moments that I feel that I'm living by my values. I'm speaking to them. I'm showing up um, in support of those values that that I talk about all
Well, I like that. I mean, you could say, like, if you see your kid do something well, hopefully you're not living vicariously through them and saying, I have pride in my kid who does X, Y, Z, but you do want to, I definitely tell my kids, man, I'm so proud of your behavior in this instance, or your character, and if, trying to affirm this in them, affirm who they are, how they are, whatnot. So if we can take it in that, because I think we seldom tend to think about, am I proud of myself? Do I feel approving of myself, or do I go around with guilt or shame? And it's interesting. I just looked up the word pride, and the first definition is a feeling of deep pleasure or satisfaction derived from one's own achievements. And I know we can now take pot shots at achievements, but if my achievement is, gosh,
path. You could say path.
okay, path,
Yeah.
but in this instant with this abrasive person, I'm proud that I wasn't an ass and I didn't
Right.
react, and I
Yeah.
responded well with good character. That's a good pride, as opposed to I'm proud of
For
myself because
sure.
I won a trophy for beating everybody or whatever.
And when we say we're proud of our kids, it's because we're looking at our kids and saying, look, I'm really grateful that you chose that approach just now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever it was, or that path, or that response, rather than it was an intentional response rather than an emotional reaction.
That's good. Well, so in that, giving them, if we look at the A words, affirmation, approval, acknowledgement, all those things that we so often tend to seek to from external sources, that the place we want to be is that we're getting that internally. And some people are going to extrapolate that and say, oh, from God, fine. But that it's between you and God, however you want to do that, but that it's not from me clambering to need it from an external validation.
Right.
Uh, so again, back to the self. Am I in that, kind of back to Pascal's, can I sit in a room for 15 minutes by myself and be okay with me? Can I listen to
Yeah.
my internal, like, can I be okay with me? So to that, again, I looked at those, just the things that I do. And it's great that I went out and rode for an hour on my bike. I got the joy, I got the outside air. I got the high heart, elevate my heart rate, makes me healthier. And that's not why I do it. Part, but really it just makes me feel like a more valid individual in and of myself when I sit back down and work on the computer, which I see your eyes going there, because I'm not saying it's all healthy. I may be doing some of these
No, it's
things.
not.
Well, could I be doing some of these things to make me feel pride that I shouldn't have to do to make me feel proud of myself too? I guess we could go there.
Sure. I mean, I start with my kids and with myself now that I'm a little more loving of myself.
Well, okay.
In in the sense that I just talked to my kids about this the other day. I said, isn't it so wonderful to know that you're always enough? You
Yeah.
never have to do more to be enough, to be loved, to be valued, to any of that stuff. You're born that way. Isn't that wonderful? We had a long conversation about that. I'm obviously speaking to myself as a reminder as well.
Wow.
And it said that anything that this is so interesting that I was talking to an 8-year-old and 2 5-year-olds, obviously, when I'm saying this, but it's just as applicable to anyone else. I recognize that there's a tendency to try to do the right thing, right? Or to, oh, I've got to do the right, but then there's guilt and shame that comes in with that when you feel like you're not doing the right thing. So I like to
Yeah.
start off with the foundation that we are all enough. We're all children of God, however you want to frame that. Um, and that we're, the Toltec that I teach a lot from talk about that, everybody says, oh, nobody's perfect. And they say, well, we believe everyone's perfect, actually. We were all born perfect. Do you look at a rock and say it's not perfect? Do you look at a dog and say that's not perfect? Maybe some dogs.
There's a few.
You know what I mean? But a flower, like, do you say it's imperfect, or is it just perfect in its existence and it's in the fact that it was created by God? Um, when we're starting from that standpoint, then it's just saying, okay, so the other why do I do the other? Why self-actualize? What's the why bother the journey there? And for me, I look at it as like, Oh, well, that's just a way that I can get more out of life. I can experience more. I can enjoy more. I can connect more. I can connect more deeply. I can have a richer experience of life. I could go to an ashram and have a great experience of life and solitude, probably. Or I could live more like what I'm living now, where I'm constantly engaged with community and our tribe, all the people around, all that. Um, will it be as easy? No. Will it be as flowy all the time? Probably not. There'll be more contrast involved there than at an ashram. But I'm having what I feel is a richer experience of life. And I'm also engaging in things that I feel are um, like when you say that, you do the run or whatever, and afterwards you feel proud of yourself. Um, I think for me in that space, with working out or whatever it is, meditation, just taking deliberate time with my kids and stuff like that, all those things are things that I feel proud of because I feel that they are in alignment with my values. So when I'm living in alignment with my values, it's really hard to feel like, oh man, I really was off today. It's like, nope, I was in alignment with my values. That's pretty much why I'm here. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. So I feel grateful for that. I feel pride, if you will, for that. Um, some of this also goes into like, or can be connected to the concept of happiness is the way, which is kind of a Buddhist philosophy, but meaning that if you want to be happy, act happy, do things that make you happy, and recognize that you're not doing them to be happy. You're saying, I'm going to be happy, and as I do these things, it's going to build that feeling inside me. It's support, it's practice. Um, for me, when I work out, whether it be physically or emotionally or spiritually working out, um, I feel very much in align with who I am, my authentic self. I feel very aligned with God, that source, power, energy. I feel like I'm doing things um, that I've intentionally sort of looked at and said, these are going to take me closer to who I want to be, more of who I want to be, more of how I want to respond, again, intentionally rather than reacting emotionally. So there's just I think really what I'm touching at here is it's like I feel alignment. I'm always looking for alignment. And when I say alignment, I guess I'm referring to aligned with love. One of my projects says align with love as the
Yeah.
tagline. And I feel like that's what I'm doing. What that pride comes from a feeling of recognition that I'm aligned with love. I'm aligned with my values.
Well, and you said the word values a lot. I like that. Yeah, I lived with a pro triathlete, one Chucky V. I think I met him. You
I
knew,
tell the story of you living with him
yeah,
often.
Chuck. And he was a guy. Of course, he's training 8 hours a day. He could eat whatever he wanted to, and he was known for grab a half gallon of ice cream and
Yeah.
polish it off. And then he had a guy saying, "Look, I know you can do that, and it doesn't seem to affect you, and you're still getting good results, but." You could also approach everything and say, is it going to help or hurt my
Yeah.
values, in his values, he wanted to win an Ironman. And so he stopped doing a lot of those things. He would look at the ice cream. Is it going to help or hurt? It's probably not going to help overall. It's not going to be the most beneficial thing to his progress. And so, I can look at those things with that in mind. However, here's another interesting topic that I'll give credit to Dr. Randy James, my co-host on the True Life Show, saying that he had to, I think this is part of his own journey to look at the reality. Of course, he's on the soapbox of here we are, especially in America, and we have the cumulative ingredients of cake and ice cream for every meal. And it comes in the form of, donuts and pastries and energy bars and, pasta and bread and white bread, whatever. And he says that's no good, but he had to get to himself to the point of, but when it is a birthday party and it's his kid who wants the cake and ice cream, that is righteous. That could be holy cake and ice cream for
Mm-hmm.
that celebration. It's just that you don't want to have that every day. So with that in mind, yesterday I was getting ready to do, I was going to do a 3-day fast. I'm going to do a series of 3 days of no food every week, start the week with that for a while. And I was going to start yesterday. Well, yesterday was a holiday, and I realized, gosh, I'm going to be home with the kids. And I'm sitting down. It's about 8:39 in the morning. I've got my coffee. We just sat down. They had asked if I'd play a game. I'm on the living room floor uh, here playing a game, and we get a knock at the door. It's FedEx guy. They never come in the morning, and he delivers. Somebody sent a gift to us, and it's this big, two big pastries, like mega donuts, basically,
Yeah.
high end stuff and whatever. And and my propensity would be to go, no, I don't do that. It's sugar and whatever. My kids are holding it. Of course, they've got big grins. And I said, you know what? I can start my fast tomorrow and I can eat something I don't normally do. And man, it was just righteous. It was so
Yeah.
good. It was so enjoyable. And does that align with my values? It did with my value of love. It deviated from my value of my dietary boundaries generally. But in that moment, and now today I'm fasting and I will for the next couple of days. And so in that moment, it did align with a greater value. It aligned with love for my kids and even reception of this sweet gift that somebody sent. And it was a moment by moment thing. So it got me to thinking again about that. We want to make the black and white. These are my values. I must align with them if I'm going to be proud of myself. We can also wake up, and this is kind of from the biblical standpoint of God, what do you have for me today? What is my manna today? It may be
Yeah.
different because I want to have the black and white and just figure it out. But I so imprison myself with that. I've had to do that with, it makes me feel proud to go exercise. But some days I got to realize, man, I'm just not into it. It's cloudy. It's cold. Now it feels like an imprisonment. And can I let myself not do it and be proud that I'm not imprisoned to my own regiment?
That's a very important point that you're bringing up. That can I be proud that I didn't do it in this moment and that I wasn't rigid? There's a Taoist teaching on being rigid versus malleable, and the bottom line is the only thing in nature that's rigid is dead.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so when we want to be malleable, like a new little plant or whatever, and we move and weave, you see plants that are weaved throughout other plants because that's just where they were planted. Um, I think that there's a definite need to be tuned in to the rigidity of things. Are you, for instance, like we're both veggie or whatever we are, and we're both very intentional with our diet, let's just
Mhm.
say. And a lot of people, I think, are doing that, what we say, like for the badge, right? They go, oh, you're the vegan person with the vegan sign. Got it. A lot of times I'm in those conversations. I don't even engage because I'm not there to prove a point or convert anyone. Um, I eat the way that I eat because I like it. Dad asked me this, our father asked me about my diet at one point, and I said, you know what? I eat exactly what I want. It just happens that those things that I want are nourishing for my body. And I don't ever have a moment, ever anymore in my life for the last 20 years where I go, oh my God, why did I do that? Like, why did I eat that? I feel horrible. It's like I just ate paint chips or something, and in the form of a donut. I don't remember the last time I had a donut, but even, and I may be a little bit more what people would call strict with my diet, but man, I'm super happy with my diet. I love what I eat. I don't feel compromised. I don't feel like I'm taking one for the team or anything, I don't
You're
feel.
you're getting points in heaven, Jared. That's what you're doing it for.
That's exactly what I'm doing.
It's more spiritual.
um, yeah, I don't. Yeah, so I think there is an element here, and this is new for me, newer in the last couple of years, but to recognize what are the things that bring me joy. I've lived the life of an activist, which when you're sort of raised in some, even in the more Christianary, is that a word?
We can go
Christian
with it.
missionary.
Go with it. Yeah,
um,
I like it.
in that scene, there was, there's dogma involved and there's rigidity involved in some of those things, and those have been prickly for me. But I've recognized that the when I'm able to release the dogma, release the rigidity, the strictness or whatever, and just be with it and recognize I'm doing it in the first place because it brings me joy. It also means that in the moment, if you have a moment like what you had yesterday with your family, you say, well, that will bring me joy in this moment. I'm going to do that. And then I would have to look at you and say, now, Kevin, did that change your lifestyle? And you go, no, it didn't. That's why it's not a problem. It just changed a moment, and the moments I can change. Lifestyle I'm dedicated to. And I think there's a difference there. It's that long-term versus short-term kind of thinking. If you have 5 of those short-term moments in a week, you might want to check yourself.
Well, yeah, if I did
But
it this,
it's not.
the next morning, then I'm going to get to the end and say, now I feel guilty, man. I ate that crap again. I feel like crap again. I mean, even the kids said, "Oh my gosh, Daddy, I had 2 pieces of that. I think I got a sugar high." I'm grateful that they know. But to something that you said there, you said, I enjoy everything you eat. You eat everything that you want. I have, in having our family with a much more structured diet than the norm, and have had the kids. I caught them. It's been a couple years, thank goodness now, but had the kids or caught one of them saying to somebody over, "Oh, we can't eat that." Whoa, 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 whoa! Yes, we can. We can eat anything that we want. You know why? Do you know why we have chosen not to eat that? Oh yeah, Daddy, I know it causes diabetes and causes. Well, yeah, so we choose not to. But it's not that we can't. We aren't. You get that feeling of fragility. Oh, they can't eat this, and they can't. Yes, we can. But if we want to perform at a level over here, I did this with Nakota. Nakota, how'd you do in your running race yesterday? I won. Huh? What might have added into that? How'd you sleep? I got a lot of sleep. What, did you have good food, healthy? Yeah. Do you think you would have won if you got bad sleep or won by, in his case, if won by as far, or you hadn't had the good diet or whatever? No, I probably wouldn't have performed. So we do that for performance, but I mean,
Yeah, it's
we
good to connect the
can,
dots. Yeah.
yeah, we can. It's not gonna kill us to do that, and we do imbibe, here and there. But to get past that point of, well, into what you said, something Terry, my wife Terry, started calling us flexitarians. What are you?
Yeah.
What kind of the 80-20 rule? Man, 80% of the time, this is generally how we go, but we allow ourselves to flex. I have flexed in that sense dietarily more this year than ever, just because I just decided to let myself flex a little bit and be okay. But back to your thing, did it give me joy? Did I feel, yeah, looking at that, we're on the opposite side of this that I think we all are acutely aware of, far too aware of. And again, maybe even more so in this arena where we are all, and I'm talking to us, the listeners, we're all exposing ourselves to these good things. Just like we talk about the bad side of social media, that all you do is see the happy highlight reel and we put, compare ourselves against that. And we can always feel bad because there's always somebody that looks shinier and happier and stuff. We can do that in personal development too. I mean, I have on guests, even like you, Jared. I mean, we talk about, healthy things that we do, and you can hear that and you can let that give you guilt, shame, disdain for yourself if you're not doing those
Yeah.
things. And we do need to hold those too, because we don't want to create that, but it's over here. What would make you feel good about yourself? What makes you not feel good about yourself? Do you ever do the binge watch of Netflix with 3 pounds of Cheetos and get up from that and go, man, I feel great.
Yeah.
I feel renewed and recharged. Whatever. Now, if you haven't done that in a long time, you've been stranded on a desert island, it's the only thing you can think about. And you want to do that and you get finished with it and go, oh my gosh, that was so fulfilling because I haven't done it. Okay. Again, we're not given a right or wrong here. We're given a what to what you said,
Yeah.
Jared. What does it for you? Joy, gratitude, fulfillment, not guilt, shame, disdain. And I am trying to elevate it. This is the point of this show. I should say that out at the out front. I'll put it in the intro. The point is to elevate the importance of you feeling good about yourself with, and I'm going to throw this in there, Jared, so with no justification. Because I'll tend to do that. Oh, I feel better when I do that. Because why? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't have to go exercise to feel good about myself. I'm not arguing. I just do. And so I'm going to go exercise. I don't have to justify it. It just makes me feel, if you like dancing, you don't have to justify it. If you like, go.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it comes up a lot, even with my kids and Saoirse, she's very, very in tune for an 8-year-old or a 50-year-old for that matter. But she'll ask me things and, why do you do this, Daddy? I like the fact she asks those questions.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm just like, I just like to, it's just, I prefer it. And she'll ask a little bit more like, well, is it the right way or wrong way or something like that? And I say, well, baby, we don't do right and wrong. Typically does this feel in alignment with love? Does it feel life-giving? Does it feel kind? Does it feel, that kind of stuff? We talk about those things, but it's not a it's not a right or wrong with me. It's a I do things because that feels in flow. It feels aligned. It feels connected. It brings me joy. Am in constant dialogue with myself. I know it brings me joy, and I know it's not things that hurt other people or the
Yeah.
planet or whatever. It's things that are in alignment with those values, like I talked about. I think there's another point here that's worth mentioning, and this is probably my own journey coming into the discussion, but uh, there is a there's a feeling like there's a self-love talk in here, right?
Okay.
There's a discussion in here that says, why would I want to do the things that make me feel proud? Why would I want to do the things that make me feel joy? We live in a society now even that says, oh, that's selfish. You should just be thinking about serving other people.
I know, especially right now when we've got narcissism is kind of a buzzword out there.
I know, and we're talking about loving ourselves and whatever. But I've also recognized that having lived, again, coming from some of our childhood teachings, I've lived a life of a martyr most of my life. It's just like, just lay yourself on the line and you splay yourself out and whatever's got to be done to save the people or help the people or
With
the
no
land.
limits, no excuses. Right.
No, and yeah, you just full tilt all the time. And I lived most of my life that way, but now, and some of it was just older age. I had to listen a little bit more, but I I recognize the importance of treating myself the way that I would treat other humans.
Mm-hmm.
It just dawned on me one day. I was like, oh my God, I'm a jerk to myself. I would never talk to another human being like I talk to myself.
I
Uh,
I haven't left that one completely yet, but yeah.
I know. I mean, maybe it's in our genes, but I have a new relationship with that now, and I thought about it like this. Just like everything else, I think about it, in relation to my kids, because that's kind of the most important. That is always my focus. And with my kids, I was thinking about, for instance, just Sarah. I'll just use her as an example. I If I think about, like, how do I want her to treat herself in a particular situation, um, or all situations, but if I think of something specific, I think, oh yeah, I really want her to be confident in herself, to treat herself kindly, to love herself, to take time for herself, to rest, to exercise, to train. Training is a big thing, I think, for all of us. But to do all those things because it's going to bring her joy. And I've talked
Mhm.
to her about discipline. Baby, the discipline's going to be one of the greatest gifts you'll ever give yourself. You're going to find the sweetest experiences of life through the discipline you have in your relationships, in the adventures that you have, in your ability to move about the world like you do, even physically, because you're working out, because you're doing yoga, and you're in tune with your body. Um, I thought about it. It really rocked me because I thought, man, if I were instructing my daughter, like, oh, I want you to live this way because it'll bring you all this joy, whatever, like, I have to then turn around to myself and say, now, Jared, you too, bud. That means you too. I'm 43 years old learning this.
Yeah.
You're 7 years older than I am learning it. And I'm hoping that I can help my children out by teaching them ahead of time, not just teaching, but exemplifying, because that's what they're actually watching. They care a lot less about our words and a lot more about how they see us handle things,
Yeah.
through example. They need to see me loving myself, doing things that make me feel happy and proud about my life, like we're talking about here. They need to see that I'm willing to do that without compromise and that I don't even have to justify it. You mentioned that as well. Like, I don't have to justify it. I can just say, this actually just brings me joy. I'm going to do this today. I like doing this. Daddy, why do we go on walks all the time around the neighborhood? There's zero purpose other than the fact that it makes me happy. That's a good example for them. It's just like, don't know. It just makes me happy to walk in our neighborhood, to see the ocean, to be in the air, and to be with you kids and talk about whatever the heck comes up. It brings me joy. So for them to see me, if they don't see me do that, and they only hear me talk about it in little sound bites, but they see me just, glued to my screen all the time, whatever screen it may be, that I'm not actually going to deliver that message in a way that they're going to receive it and implement it. It's
Yeah.
just going to be more hypocrisy crap that they run into as humans that they're going to see plenty of in their life. I hope they don't see much of it for me.
That example, yeah, it's probably 3 years ago. I had not done any kind of competitive event. My younger kids knew me racing bikes professionally, but my older kids didn't. The younger ones didn't. They had a duathlon down in Colorado Springs, run, bike, run, off trail or on trail. And so I went to do that, took the family with me, and I had this not overwhelming, but a little bit of feeling guilt. Like, man, this is just for me. I'm doing this for me. They're out there seeing me. They're going to be bored sitting around. I'm going to be out and, on the trail. And afterwards, they all shared how much they loved it and how, and I'm extrapolating, paraphrasing some from that, but ultimately it was what I got from them is they loved seeing me do something that inspired me and gave me so much joy. Cause I'm looking at it
Yeah.
and go, man, this is just for me. I'm just selfishly, I just want to do this thing. I think maybe I had even tried to pawn it off and go, no, guys, I'll just go do it. You don't need to come. But Terry's probably like, it's so close. We'll just all come watch you. Okay. Kind of felt that, but again, just felt like this is all about me. And then to see the reaction from them, for me to do something that inspired me, that was self-care, that was, and in that sense, it was probably cool, dad, the athlete kind of thing. But to see that was so impacting to me, to see them. There's somebody that made a quote, man, I wish I'd have thought about it sooner, but it's kind of the tragedy of a child who doesn't see their parents go after their dreams. There's a really good quote.
Mm,
If I
yeah.
searched for it online, I could probably find it. Said by one of some famous name. But I'm going to paraphrase the tragedy of the parent who doesn't follow their heart, doesn't follow their dreams. And there's somebody I just had on one of the shows, and that was their story. Hopefully it'll occur to me in a second who it was, but that was their story. They witnessed their parents and heard somewhat about what their parents' dreams or desires had been, and they weren't doing them. And they decided, I want to do something different. And they went forward in their life saying, I'm going to do I am going to pursue my dreams. I am going to
Mm,
do what is, because they saw that not happen. So again, the value of how which is what you said, our kids are going to watch how we take care of ourselves. And if we're just a worn out, strung out mule
mm.
taking care of our family at our own expense, for one thing, why the heck does my kid want to grow up? Really? That's what I got to look forward to. I'm thinking, I want my kids to think, man, daddy turned 50 and his life's awesome. I, I can't wait to get older. I can't wait to grow up. I mean, what do we want to showcase? No wonder kids don't want to grow up and are growing up slower and slower than ever.
We talk about that some in the family, and Sarah will say stuff about it, and I often joke by saying, "Hey, no, I don't want anybody growing up around here.
Mm-hmm.
There's no grown-ups in this house, me included."
Yeah.
um, it's like, we learn and we mature and we evolve and whatever, but
We can be
in terms of
wise children.
exactly, like I'm just, people ask me a lot, what's your, what if you had a style, what's your parenting style or whatever, and I immediately just say Peter Pan. um, I was like, oh, that came up the other day in a conversation too, where I said, I feel like love and imagination are the things that I'm really tuned in to sharing with my children. I want them to have confidence. That's a big thing that I work on, and that self-love and confidence and all that. That's a bottom layer there, which falls obviously into the love category of love and imagination. And then just imagination is just something that I can share with them. Uh, and I also recognize it's a thing that I feel like parents talk about sometimes, but I don't see a whole lot of parents living an imaginative life, living out that dedication to valuing imagination, like we talk about it.
Yeah, you only get that to a certain age, and then you have to go be responsible, right?
Exactly, responsible, practical, all that
Yeah.
jazz. And to me, as a strategist, I'm like, look, if you're not incorporating the imagination side, I'm only getting like the practical stuff out of you, and that's no fun. I want the real gold, and that's going to be through what we imagine together or on your own, whatever. Uh, my kids need to see what I think it comes right back down to what we're talking about in the beginning. They need to see my joy and pride in that I'm feeling as I go out and imagine and create and follow my dreams and do all that other stuff. Like there's another side of that too. If I were just going all at that, hammering away all the time and I was miserable, they'd also see that. That's not going to teach them anything valuable that I want them to learn from me either. Um, I think, this is another story that taps into this just briefly with my son, Francois, who is 27 now. um, and when he first came into my life, he was 10. I think I was 29 or something like that. And I just had this realization that was like, oh my God, there's another human watching my life that's very likely to emulate the things that I do. There was an added dynamic in that I was an American. He's, a Rwandan kid, and they believe that America's the land of milk and honey, and money just falls out of the skies, and everybody rolls around like Jay-Z. um, and I was like, wow, that's not been my life. um, so there was a moment when I realized that my life was sort of on display for another human, and he's likely to be very heavily influenced by that.
Yeah.
And as an influencer in his life, then I thought, well, what do I want him to see me doing, living out? That would bring me pride too, honestly, and joy. For to know that I'm living in a way that he's looking at going, I want to emulate that because that feels aligned with love, feels aligned with our values as a family. Um, and I think that's a big motivating factor for me, speaking to my motive. My motive is to inspire my kids, to lead through inspiration and example, not demands and rigidity and dogma and rules. We don't have hardly any, I don't know of any rules in this house, don't hit people and whatever, but it's mainly just be love, just be love. That is our family motto, just be love. And it's like in this moment, I don't have to come in and think of all the things that might have gone off in this situation or, tally things up. I just say, does that feel aligned with love? Inevitably, my kids will come back and say, nope, sorry. And I say, well, what would have been? And then they come up with something, and I don't just leave it. I stay there until something is conjured up. Like, what would be in line with love? Let's just do that now, and then we kind of self-correct together. Um, when I do that with that self-correction too, that with my kids, it's like if I do something or say something off or respond emotionally negatively, um, I will literally immediately. My kids are used to this. I'll just turn around and go, "Hey, that was out of line. I'm sorry. I apologize for that. I
Yeah.
could have responded differently, and here's how I would have done it more intentionally. Does that feel better?" And Saoirse will tell me, she's like, "Yeah, that feels better. Thank you." So they see that self-correction and and maybe the humility that comes with it. It's like, I'm not in it for a badge. I'm in it to be a better example to my kids. That's going to bring me joy too. So even just kind of the testing ground of like being an example for my kids and doing like, I'm going to step into that space and be the kind of human that I hope they aspire to be. That's not a chore. That's a
Yeah.
gift. Like I
Yeah.
get to do that with my kids. How amazing. So I really do love that. It brings me joy to think about that. It's not an intimidating thing. It's a privilege to be cognizant of it. I think not everyone is, and I'm
Well, I
grateful
like
that
the
I am.
premise of, parenting is just such an acute analogy to use here, that because there are times when a child needs some guidance, some boundaries, some, whatever you want to call it, correction or whatever. But even there, in how I respond, I can look at that and go, okay, do I feel proud of how I responded? Even if that is, so I'm one who's very, very, this is something I'm working on right now. And I'm going to do some work on why I am so conflict averse. I'm way too far. And I haven't unpacked it enough to figure out how. And it's kind of getting to be acute, but looking at that, sometimes I need to feel proud of myself that I did set a boundary, or I
Hmm.
did confront something and deal, and deal with conflict. So it's not, again, we're back to just what makes you feel proud. And we often justify, especially relationally, justify our behaviors, something that we may have said that was, stern or whatever, put somebody in their place and that needed to happen. Or, yeah. Do you feel proud about how you said that because you can do kindness and graciousness. You can do boundaries with that as well. It's just a spirit. I can do the same thing and say, gosh, you know what, that wasn't in love, and we're not going to do that again. And take care of that in a way that I feel proud of. You know, this obviously takes some awareness. This takes some to do it well. You've mentioned values so often. There's a lot of folks that, you know, me included, it's always a journey, who have not established what are your values. But just if we
Yeah.
just come back and boil up again, you know, what makes you feel, you know, we can say good about yourself, but I do like the word. It's a different twist because we can't just say, what makes me feel happy? What gives me joy? What makes me feel proud? And I can segregate those a little bit. Sometimes they overlap, but again, what makes me feel, I'm just so aware that my acute place with that is for some reason exercise does, going out and doing something and expending myself, which I've done all my life, but man, it makes me just feel better about myself. This came to fruition, and you were privy to some of this, but it was 1998. 1996. I had a son at 95, a lot of medical issues, spent a couple years as a lifetime athlete doing nothing. I had 2 years of my life where I was not in any type of athletic pursuit. And my wife ultimately conspired with the local bike shop dealer. They got me a bike, and she didn't just say, go ride your bike and have fun. She said, go train. And I don't know if she even knew what she was saying, but she was just experiencing. She actually said, "You're just a better person when you're out there training. I liked you better. Go train." And I ultimately, you know, took back up my
Yeah.
elite cycling. But I realized that then she's right. Why is it? I didn't know. I don't know if I still know completely. Why is it though when I go out with a goal and push myself, and that I just am happier? I sit down and I can write better. I can deal with conflict better. I am more prone to pursue my values overall. You use the word disciplines. It's like discipline begets discipline generally. When I let myself go on one thing, I'll let myself go on others. And I realize that. And I have to watch the imprisonment again. But coming over here, you know, I perform, I'm better for everybody if I'm doing these things that help me feel better about who I am. And that list is infinite and totally individual. So I can't take my list and give it to you. You'd go, I get nothing out of that. Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like it's this pride thing that we're talking about in this very positive sense. I think is the um, for me a lot of it's the recognition of the discipline that is aligning me with my values. It's like I
Okay.
recognize I did
That's good.
something that I it was a disciplined act or response or something. And when I look at discipline, I know we're not here to talk about our parenting, but that seems to keep coming up with me.
I think it's
But
it's just an acute example.
yeah, I agree.
It exacerbates some of these issues. Yeah.
Right. I don't I don't know that I would ever say there's anything I've ever done to punish my children for their behavior. I have um I mean when it punishment, you know, if that's a thing that we would look at, the closest I get would be like a timeout or a time away from the tribe.
Well, I was going to
Um,
say, I like consequence or cause and effect. Gosh, you know, I like that you have your toy hammer, but you just smashed your sister's finger for the third time. There's a consequence. Let me have the hammer. I think that's not
eh,
helping us out.
yeah, so exactly. It's like, look, you were playing with this and you hurt someone with it multiple times. We talked about it. So that's gone for the day. Just carry on and
Yeah.
do something else. You know now what happens with that. I don't need to also spank you. I don't also need to berate you or belittle you. You know, we have a rule in the house. Actually, the one big rule in the house, the guiding principle is just be love. And maybe the one rule is don't ever make anybody feel small. Um,
Yeah. I was going to say
and that,
respect. That's the line that we draw.
yeah.
And I can even give that consequence or whatever, again, with respect, with grace, but no, I'm not going to, because we do have the parents that just, I'm not going to, you know, no boundaries, no whatever. Well,
I
I'd
see
rather
that a
you,
lot around
yeah,
me.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'd rather you did give your kid the boundary, because your kid just hit me with his hammer, and that's not cool. Or hit my kid with it. That's not okay.
That alignment with love is not passive. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Like to say that, you know, if you say something that makes me angry and I come back at you with anger or some sort of mighty fist, you know, whatever, and I can take you in a fight or whatever. Who cares? That's the weakest thing I could do in terms of responses. And I talk to my kids a lot about that, about that's a your anger is your weakness. That's a sign of weakness when you're expressing it. Now, to feel it is fine. Feel it all for sure. Let it move through you and all that. Your feelings are important. We talked about that the other day about the feelings are there. That's your guidance system. Like, don't negate the feelings. Like, the feelings are important. Listen to them. But when you respond, you have an option, if you'd like, to respond intentionally according to those feelings, but not, they're good informers and bad masters, those feelings.
Yeah, that's
So
good.
they're there to guide us and inform us of something, even just a feeling about a person or something like that. We have that intuition in us, and we should honor that. It's there for a reason. It's a gift. Um, so I feel like the part of this is just about what is it that makes me, you know, what brings me joy. It's like what makes me feel aligned, what makes me feel, you know, in your values. You talked about like sometimes not knowing what maybe those are, like what do I really value. I think then you can flip it and on the other side and say, well, what are the things that bring me joy? It's like those are probably the things that I value. I talk about this a lot just in terms of behavioral economics. You and I talk about this, you know, that term, behavioral economics. And my philosophy has always just been that, you know, we have experiences that happen at us, birthplace, parents. We have experiences that we go after, you know, going on a trip or living in another culture or whatever it is, um, being an athlete, you know, those kinds of experiences. Those inform our perspective. That perspective is our operating system. It determines what it is that we value. From there, we determine what it is that we're going to prioritize in our life. From there, you can be pretty sure that you're going to see my behavior come out of that
Yeah.
mix there. And then that's also going to contribute to my culture around me. You know, the culture, Seth Godin says that people like us do things like this. And I would
Yeah.
add, you know, and believe this way. Um, that feeds the culture. And then we have a social system, a social agreement like capitalism or you know, we have two lines on a road going over a hill. We just agree that's we're not going to cross those. It seems like a good
Right.
idea if we all agree on that. It's a social agreement. It's not a universal fact necessarily. It's just it's just a social agreement. And when we look at these things in our world and say, oh, this is a problem, the way we do schooling or the way we do, you know, healthcare, whatever, I say, okay, well, you got to track yourself all the way back to what does it inform that person's perspective, that it then informed their values and their priorities. Priorities is a big one for me. Is what do we prioritize as an individual? What do we prioritize as a community, as a government, as a, you know, country, you know, all the way out. Our I often will look at a situation and say, "Hey, your priorities are showing there, buddy." um, as I wrote a blog about this a long time ago called "We All Do What We Want." I was like, if you say I want to work out, I'll know how much pretty soon by
Yeah.
whether or not I see you working out or not. It's like I get that you want to work out. I'll know how much by whether or not you do it. We all do kind of what we want, I think, ultimately. Anyway, so I think that's all just it's a matter of then it's saying like I want to be intentional about the way that I live, which is also going to help me get more intentional experiences. Like if I say I want to live this way, I have an idea of some of the things I'm going to experience,
Hmm.
um, and how I'm going to be informed by that, and how it's going to impact my life and influence the way that I do things, the way that I think, the way that I respond. So if I eat a bunch of nasty food, it's going to affect the way that I respond to life the next day physically. If I put a bunch of crap in my head, films or you know media, whatever it is, then it's going to affect the way that I respond to my daughter the next day or to my son or
Hmm.
whomever. Um, it's so it has that cause and effect there as well. Anyway, that's a dynamic that I think I'm trying to kind of like dance with my kids in that discussion. And you know, as you teach and sort of exemplify, it also like has a sort of speeds up your own refining process, and your
Totally.
own discipline, which I love. I
Totally.
think the sweetest stuff in my life has come from that discipline, my relationships, disciplining myself and how I respond and tune into people. um, tuning into what their motive is. I talk about that a lot with my clients. It's like, I want to know what this person's motivated by. If I do, I can tune into that and I can align every conversation with it and know that they're all going to flow. And
Yeah.
that way I can actually have a good conversation that gets things done instead of having this resistance because I haven't tuned into what they're motivated by.
To the underlying, absolutely. Well,
It's
it's
a
the motive.
discipline.
It's the motive
Yeah.
show.
There we go. And now we're back.
You know, well, and you know, when it was interesting, Jerry, when I initially asked this question on Facebook, and we could spend an hour or more going through responses. I'm not going to, but uh, people initially started listing things. When I said, "What what makes you proud?" They listed things that they had done, like historical things. That I joined the army and served my country. I one lady said I ran and completed 3 Ironmans. Somebody talked about I think a business venture. They grew a big business, whatever. So these things that we've done, which is good too. I mean, to think about something that whatever you're going to are going to do now, or do some event, do some initiative, whatever, is that something that can go in the notch of something that makes you feel proud for the things I can look back and say, as a pro cyclist, I'm proud of that. I like that there. It helps me understand myself to look at some of the achievements that I've done. And I'm grateful that I built a home and that we went through the trial of that and built this, because it's a blessing to my kids and my family. And so I have those things that I'm proud of. Anyway, so we have those, what we call them, those anchor points of things that we've done that we can look back on and say, I'm proud of that. Now, when I ask the question, my perspective, and I have learned not to ask the questions with too much perspective. I kind of let it go and see where it goes. But it was, what are the things that we do consistently? What are the day-to-day things that we do that I have control of, that I can do today to help myself feel, proud of myself. There was another one though too, Jared. I had, and it came because one guy said, I remember his name. His name's Terry Johnson. He responds a lot, and he said he was proud of the fact that he has his adult kids who work with him in his business. And I thought that's an interesting way, because that's almost like a fruition that he can't say that he controlled. He wasn't taking claim for, here's what I did, but to see a fruition. And I got to admit, again, we keep on coming back to kids, which is interesting, that I've seen things in my kids that a fruition that I'm just so grateful for. And I do take some credit. Obviously, I know if your kids are out, and this is parental uh dangerous area to get into. Because I have great friends, amazing people right now who've got kids going through horrendous things and really bad fruitions. And so I'm not looking at them and go, well, they did something wrong. And, I've got this kid over here that did something right. And so that's a dangerous area. But obviously we can't not look at that. I can't not look at my kid who's done a bad thing and feel some blame is not a bad word. What's a better word? Some culpability.
You had influence in how
And
that came
thank you.
out.
I had
Yeah.
some influence in that. And this guy's attesting to, I am so proud that something that he did, and I just find myself doing this, man. I can't tell you exactly why. This kid did that. I'm so grateful that fruition came. So we could talk about, that from a pride standpoint, things that we have been a part of. I like, that's a good word. We'd have influence in that had a good fruition. People who've been involved in a work thing or a humanitarian thing that, man, I'm so grateful to have been a part of that and have invested something and see that come to fruition. So if we look at these things of pride, it made me not to, not to have to pick categories or something like that, but to look at the things that we've done, the things that we continually do. And then this, I don't know. Again, it was real new. I just posted the question long ago, that this fruition of things that we've been involved in, that we've had influence in, as the things that people, this is just plain what people cited. That's what they did. And a lot of them did do daily
Yeah.
habits. I'm grateful that I get up in the morning now and I do X, Y, Z. I'm grateful that I exercise. It makes me feel proud about myself. But it was just an interesting look at what came from people as I asked that question. And for some reason, that's the 3 categories. I don't know if the fruition one, I haven't fleshed that one out, but it seemed to be a little bit different from, this is what I did. This is what I do. This is something that I've seen that, man, I'm grateful for.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's interesting. Like when you first framed that up, I thought, well, you think about things I'm proud of. I have a list of some things that are fairly significant that I've done over the years in terms of helping other humans around the world. Um, the idea of the discussion of what is it that I'm proud of and things like that. I hadn't even thought about any of that stuff. Didn't come up. The first thing that I thought of was the uh, the way that I respond. Like if you say, Jared, what are you proud of? My first thought, well, and you did before we got on the call. The first things that I thought of was how do we, how it went to the relation of how do I respond to my children and to my friends and other people. Um, how is it that am I proud of that response? Because that really takes a lot of discipline. I've also found that I can be disciplined on like a big thing pretty easily. It's obvious, exercise, meditation,
Yeah.
whatever. Uh, it's harder to be disciplined in the moment, in that little emotional moment when someone says something and you want to just turn around and respond. Can I let it go in that moment? Can I respond intentionally in that moment? Um, that's really the area where I get the most pride, to think like, oh, that was a sketchy moment. And I realized like kind of the old response I would have had, and it wouldn't have been great. Versus what I just did, where I maybe asked a question, or I just said, you know what, you're right, or whatever it is. And I chose kindness over correctness or something like that. That's a big one. When I know I can get in there and drive it in and be like, hey,
Huh.
I'm a good arguer. I do it for a living. Um, and I could get somebody there, but to know that I didn't, and that I just responded with a hug, whether it be real or emotional or whatever. Uh, that's the kind, how did I respond in that moment?
Yeah.
Or to a bigger thing, concept or whatever. But when I think about my pride, it's really about how I'm responding in those moments. And I honestly feel like that's a lot of what my kids are seeing, my friends are seeing. It's those moment to moment responses. Um, that are a reflection of the discipline, uh, that I'm exhibiting. And that discipline is to live a lifestyle of aligned with my values.
Yeah.
And that's a constant. And there, as we talked about earlier, there may be little dips and deviations or whatever from that, but that line is going. I had a talk with Chase Reeves, my close friend, my another brother from another mother. And I was listening to his podcast last night, by the way, which is great. And it was it was a discussion more um, about that, just about the way that we're choosing to respond in those moments, and how it tells a story about our greater perspective and who we are on the whole. Like I talk a lot about people's way. We talk about Jesus. It's you talk about lots of different things, but what I'm really interested in is Jesus's way. How did he respond to life? How did he respond to a situation that we could name, 100 different situations that we know from the Jesus stories that, like, wow, not sure if I would have responded that way.
Yeah.
We want to, because he responded in love every time consistently. And that's what I've extracted from that discussion with my kids, is just to say, look, if you want an example of responding in love every time, we have one. Jesus. So that's that story. It's the way. I'm looking at a bunch of books here in front of me, and they're all, the Hagakure, which is the way of the samurai. There's books about Jesus, the way of Jesus. I have one here called The Way of the Scout, talking about the Lakota sense of being a scout. Um, all of these books are about the way. And I think that what we're talking about here is, when we feel pride from something, it's associated with the way that we're approaching life, the way that we're responding to life.
Well, I liked what you said about Seth Godin. What was it? These kinds of people do things this way. How'd you say it?
When he refers to culture, he says, yeah, people like us do things like
Right.
that,
People. I like
um,
that.
or like this. Yeah, and I love that. I use it a lot, and especially with clients. And I'd extrapolate a little bit and say that, it's a reflection of how people believe. It's a group think situation, culture, and it's a reflection of how a bunch of people think, typically in a geographic area, or even just in a affinity group of some kind, or whatever it is. There's a sort of a common belief system there. And then that informs more of a common behavior from
Yeah.
that belief system, and that's how you get culture.
You talked about things that you look back in your past. You said this a second ago that you are proud of that have to do with helping people. And this has come to, I want to pick at that just for a second. Anthony, Anthony DeMello. Have we talked about him? He's got the
I
book
don't know if
aware.
we have, but I do know. Yeah, I'm a
Okay.
fan. Yeah.
He's got the book awareness that, oh, he's,
Yeah.
got others, but this book awareness is what it's a top shelf for me. And he's a little bit chastising in his message of this, but for me it was just important along the lines of this discussion where he's saying ultimately those things that we do, those altruistic things, those things that we serve, those, we could say that, the Christianity is sacrificial things, die to self, whatever. And he's kind of taking aim at that and going, it's impossible. Everything you do, you get something out of. If Mother Teresa got something out of it, it made her feel good about herself. And now I'm paraphrasing, but to say that, and to me, it was freeing. It didn't take away from me doing something for someone because it helped me understand why I do it, why I want to, or help me understand why I'm doing something for somebody and I'm not feeling good about myself because I'm doing it out of, you mentioned being a martyr, or I'm doing it and I'm actually bitter towards that. This is something I've really had to come to in recent years, even. And there's been a handful of times when, one in particular, where my wife asked me to do something. I was the yes man that I normally am and said, yes, I will. Walked out. And again, I'm amidst this. I've probably just been reading Anthony or something like that. And I came back and I said, you know what? I just said yes, like I always do. I could go do that. It would not be with a good heart. I just got to admit that and I'm so sorry that I'm struggling. I could, it's possible to do it, but I just, in this moment, it wouldn't be with a good heart. And she didn't act like this, but it was almost like, oh, I'm so proud of you, Kevin, for actually being honest with your feelings. Yay for you. Because I'm normally not. But to look at that and realize the things that I do for others that make you feel good about it, they make you feel good about yourself. If you love giving, I'm going to be facetious, but, or not facetious, but, giving money to the homeless, or helping during Katrina, which you did, or to go to Africa and serve that, or, we went down to the children's home and people, oh, you're, so good to go give to those kids. And I'm thinking, now my family got way more out of serving down there than any of those kids got out of it. We got a lot. So don't kid ourselves about that. And again, not to take away from our efforts at selflessness and whatnot. I'm not trying to poke at that, but to me, it just helped to realize, man, I get something out of it, and that is okay. It makes me feel good about myself. That is okay. I need to do those things that do, again, we're back to that. Give me, for lack of a better word, make me feel proud, make me feel approving. And I like what you said earlier on in the show about our kids. We would do this thing and help them be aware of something that they did that was love, that was good. And said, you see, you did that. I'm proud of you. I have gratitude in you. We could come up with different ways to say it, gratefulness in what you did. Your light shone, and what you said, do I turn around and go, Kevin, how you doing in this area? Are you feeling proud of yourself? Are you doing those things, or are you just berating yourself all day, feeling guilt, feeling shame? Man, we are just not helping anybody when we do that. I want you feeling proud of yourself. You'll do a better job for me. You'll be,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, and it perpetuates it, because if I clean the house, you know me, I'm a bit of a, most people consider me a little OCD.
Well, see, I was just,
Um,
yeah,
fine. But I clean, I mean, my space is immaculate. I'm looking around me right now. It looks like a museum. But why is that? It's not because I'm rigid. When the kids are running amok or whatever, and there's something going on and there's a big mess everywhere, it's just like, well, there's a big mess. It's fine. I'm not weirded out about it. Now, that mess isn't going to stay in my house for a long time. It's going to be finished by the end of the day, typically. And we say, okay, now we cleaned it up. We had a good time. We cleaned it up. Now, the joy in that is important. Like, if I begrudgingly clean the house and the kids are just like, "Yeesh, don't talk to dad today. He is not in a happy mood. He's got to clean a toilet." That's going to send a message about cleaning and what that's like. So I don't, that's a discipline that I have to clean, to keep my space clean, to keep it organized, and I might go as far as to say optimized. I spend a lot of time like dialing in my space because it's where I live all day long. This scene that you see behind me, and all this is where I live.
Yeah.
This is my office. Um, so I'm deliberate about that, and I'm deliberate about cleaning the house, and keeping that space clean. And the kids see me have joy from that because they know that if they come in and I'm cleaning a toilet, chances are I'm listening to a great audiobook online on Audible or something. I'm getting fed that way. I'm whistling, I'm dancing around or whatever, and I get done cleaning and I'm like, woohoo, house is clean. It's amazing. I feel so good. It feels wonderful. And then I couple that with other times when I'm having, a little stumbling place with a kid that's not wanting to clean. Oh, daddy, I gotta clean or whatever. And I say, hey, you know what? It's okay. I want you to sit over there. Just sit right next to me here, but I don't want you to do anything. The other ones, whatever, maybe it's Zion that's not wanting to clean. And I'll say, Saoirse and Taya and I are going to clean this place up. Lickety split. And I look at them and I go, are you guys ready? We're going to do it. It's going to be awesome. And we do it. And the one kid sits there and watches and is like, what the, wait, can I clean? I want to clean. I want the joy of cleaning,
Yeah.
and there's another discussion real quick that goes with that. And actually comes from a book. I'm not even going to try to say his name. I forget his name. But he's a monk, and he wrote a book called The Magic of Awareness. You can look that up. It's a simple little book. It's very short, and it's rocked my world. I've read it about 50 times, literally. Um, he talks about that he's coming obviously from a Buddhist sense, which I study a lot, but it's the idea that we finish sleeping by making our bed. We finish eating by cleaning the table or the kitchen or whatever. We finish, all of these things are part of the process. It's not something that we do in addition. It's part of the joy. If I had the joy from making a mess, I will have the joy continued as I clean it up. That's a different framing, especially for a kiddo
Yeah.
sometimes. And so they understand that part of it. And then to take a step away from that as a parent and say, well, hey, Kevin, what is it that brings your kids joy? If you were to say serving others or lighting someone else up or bringing joy to someone's life, I think, wow, that's amazing. That's so great. So obviously that's the stuff that I want to foster on the other side. That's the environment I want to create for them and cultivate that environment, uh, so that they are constantly in tune with, wait, cleaning isn't a punishment. Cleaning isn't something I do outside of the other thing that I did to make the mess. It's part of it. And it's actually the part where I can get equal joy to having created the mess in the first place. It's like we clean up the mess from a gathering of friends. I'm not going to regret the gathering of friends because I have a mess. I just see it as it was part of the same act.
Yeah.
So I think that framing has helped me individually a lot, and then also helped uh, certainly my children in being more inspired to kind of emulate some of that same sort of discipline and the
Yeah.
joy that we get from it.
Yeah. It made me think of the quote. I pulled it up here, attributed to Martin Luther King Jr. If it falls to your lot to be a street sweeper, sweep streets like Michelangelo painted pictures, sweep streets like Beethoven composed music, sweep streets like Shakespeare wrote poetry, sweep streets so well that all the host of heaven and earth will have to pause and say, here lived a great street sweeper who swept his job well.
I love that quote, man. Actually, Dad's used that quite a few times. That particular quote,
Yeah.
and I love it because it's so. I've definitely done that in my
Yeah.
life, and yeah, I was a janitor. Remember at the church when we were
Uh-huh.
growing up, I was
Uh-huh.
15 years old, and I did that with great pride because I was like, I'm nurturing and like I don't know, I'm cleaning up a space for something that's important that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And I feel the same way with my home. It's like this is our temple, kind of. It's like where we, especially nowadays with lockdown, it's like we're here so much. I want it to be it's an extension of who I am, my space around me, and the relationships around me are an extension of who I am.
Yeah.
And that's a reflection. I hope those relationships are a reflection of my discipline, in that I want to always be love in those relationships. I want to exemplify love. I want to
Yeah.
respond in love. I want to bring light. My name, Angaza, means to illuminate, bring light. Uh, but that's not just something that just automatically happens every second. I do have to discipline myself to do it, to show up in that way. And that beautiful discipline brings me such amazing life experience that I am proud
Well,
of.
yeah, perspective and again, going back to the motive, the why, and what you just talked about, us talking about taking pride in what you do, but also knowing the bigger picture of that. I'm not going to read it. Anybody listening, if you type in the story of three bricklayers, you'll find a parable about three guys laying brick, and it's, one just laying brick, the other is building a cathedral. You are not just cleaning your floor, you're creating a home and an atmosphere, which I've got a current addiction. Somebody got us a Roomba, the little robot that goes around and vacuums. We
Yeah.
got a big house, man. At night, I'm addicted to the thing. Anytime I can get it to run, if we're leaving the house, I'm going to turn it on and let it go do it again. Cause it always gets some junk off the floor. We have, these spotless floors now. I dig it. But, so on this, to where to go with this for folks, in episode 7 of the Motive Show, I went through these key areas of life where we just statistically as humans desire and pursue fulfillment, relationships, finances, our health and wellness. We've hit on a lot of these, but I kind of broke it into 7 areas. So you can go listen to that show if you want to, but just a great look at those areas and then audit what does make you feel proud, like financially, what makes you feel proud. And for one person, it's going to be to not have any debt. For some person, and I want a person, I want, this much money in a bank account or in savings. Or this person may just say, I just want to have very little needs so that I don't need much money and I can be something, whatever, knock your socks off. What is it that makes you feel proud of you? Going back to what you talked about, Jared, just, what do you want? Which we talk about so much here, but to look at the area of relationships, what makes you feel proud? What kind of responses? You've talked a lot about that. What kind of uh, responses, not, emotional gut reactions? What responses make you feel proud of yourself? And I think we can all tune into the kind of response that we sometimes slip up and have that makes us not feel proud. And you can go at it that way. We always come at the positive. What makes you feel proud? What makes you feel shame and guilt? If you want to start there, that makes it more tangible. Okay. Yeah. Where do you feel guilty? Where do you feel shame during the day? Okay. Write that down and then figure out what would the opposite of that look like to create that list. And becoming, you just mentioned that, being aware. I pulled that up, man. I'll get it. I mean, I love Anthony DeMello's book, Awareness. I'll recommend that to anybody. You said The Magic of Awareness. Was it Annam Thubton or something?
That's
Thubbin?
why I didn't try to
Yeah.
tackle a name.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't
yeah,
know.
but that's the book. Yeah, and it's just a
The,
short book.
the
It may.
magic. I'm going to buy it now. The Magic of Awareness.
I don't know if is it available book format. I listen to it on audio. Sometimes it's just audio.
Yeah, it's paperback on
Okay, cool.
Amazon, Kindle, and paperback. Um, there,
It's
but
probably a good one to have sitting around too. It's just
yeah,
it's a good
well,
one to go back into.
I've got Anthony's in the main bathroom at our house. So, but becoming aware. But again, yeah, just looking at some of those main things. I mean, if there's one thing that you do every day that makes you feel proud of yourself. You mentioned the making the bed. There's some guy, like some military general guy. I think that's the name of his book, Make Your Bed. It's some bestseller. I just haven't gotten it. And I get that. I just don't care about making my bed. I just love to jump up and go. And so it's not, again, we're back to years. We're not giving you a list of right or wrongs. These are the
No,
things that
it's not about that at all. Yeah, it's literally like what's your thing? I mean, dude, for me, I get out of my bed. I literally pull up the blankets. I slip one arm out, I pull it over, and I get out of the bed and it's made. um,
yeah.
it's just a system I've got. And my kids get up in the morning and I don't even say anything. They just start making their bed because they know that's how you wake up. It's how you finish sleeping is you make the bed. And I would imagine that I do feel like they feel joy from that. Like they experience joy from having their place cleaned up. A lot of times they'll come back in. There's a playroom here in the house, and they'll come back in and say, "Daddy, check out the playroom. It's all cleaned up." And I'm like, "Yeah, thanks, man. I didn't even say anything. That's
Yeah.
amazing." Um, And I go in there and she's like, and I did this and I did this and I did. She's having pride about her behavior. She's
Yeah.
experiencing pride about her behavior because of the way that she responded to a situation, because of the way she acted in that situation. And I love that. I mean, ultimately, that's what I am trying to um, incite there, I guess. Is it, or inspire, maybe is a better word. Uh, is that she sees me having joy from these disciplines in my life.
Yeah.
So she sees the discipline, she sees the joyful process of me engaging in the discipline and the joy that comes from the fruit of that discipline. It's all joy, joy, joy. And she's saying, wait a minute, as a small programmable human, more so than any other time in her life, she's like, I got it. Discipline equals joy. If I can do that as a father, that's huge. That's not the only thing I'm trying to do, but that's up there.
Okay, so that's a great segue to where I thought we would land here, and I almost feel a little bit remiss for not giving it more attention earlier. We did touch on it, but it's important here. I think that we're talking about what makes you feel proud of yourself, and I'm going to say in and of yourself, separate from somebody else, because we are helping our kids instill and understand and become aware of that pride. We're doing that for them to help them manage that and come to that. Now,
Mhm.
we as adults, though, how often does that pride lie within somebody else's response? Again, we're back to those A's, the affirmation, the approval, the acknowledgement, whatever. And we can look and go, man, it feels great when my boss does this, or it feels great when I make this sale, or it feels great when I get this, iTunes review for my podcast. It feels great. That makes me feel proud. Okay, what are the things? Those are all things I can't control. I may be able to influence them some, but where can I get it? Be proud in and of myself. And again, my analogy of going out and ride. Nobody's causing me. We're back to Joshua Spodek's self-imposed, daily, challenging, healthy activities. The thing you do not have to do, that you choose to do for you, that gives you that feeling of pride, and you have control of it. It's in and of yourself. And I can sit in the room like Pascal for 15 minutes with my own head, my own self-talk, and feel proud about myself, what I've done, what I'm doing, what I'm going to do, that I have control over. So I want to separate that out from the outside stuff, which is great. And I'm not dissing that. I don't have to feel bad about the next positive iTunes review that somebody listening right now is going to give me after they listen to the show. Thanks. Appreciate that. I can feel pride in that, but I don't have control over that one. What do I have
Yeah,
control
I think
over?
it's got to be. Uh, I don't feel that it's complete or fully real, maybe in your life or authentic, when it's so conditional
Yes.
to other outside influence or approval or whatever it is. Um, I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of what am focusing on is building a resilience there, to
Mm-hmm.
say that I'm going to respond in love no matter what. It doesn't matter what. There should never be a time when I say except for, or but they did, or anything else. Like, there's no justification in my mind at all. I don't
Yeah,
care what it is.
I love the word you use, justification, because I was also thinking justice, and that's such a any uh, the action adventure. I'm what do I the superhero type, Marvel and whatever. I mean,
Avengers, yeah.
there's one Justice League or something.
Justice League, yeah,
Yeah,
it's DC Comics.
and
Yeah,
justice. Okay, there you go. Justice is this is done, and it
just watch this.
justifies
Yeah,
this punishment. In essence, yeah,
yeah. Well, I'm an activist. You know that
I
deal.
do.
You've seen that play out.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's funny. I have justice written on my arm in well, you can find it in there somewhere, but in Latin, equitas. But the word justice in Latin was associated. It was inseparable from the word equality. Equitas is justice and equality as we know them merged, essentially. And we've separated it for convenience, I
Yeah.
think, later on. But in my mind, justice is not um when I say equality, that's justice and equality there, it really is about sort of an aligned response, to whatever it is that's happened. It's not just about saying, well, it's justice that this person did a bad thing and now we lock them up.
Yeah.
It's really to say, like, that whatever quote unquote bad thing happened, but now how do we respond to it justly?
Yeah.
And that doesn't, yeah, there's a colloquial understanding, I think, of of the word or the term justice, but it's
Yeah.
not complete. um, it really, I think, is a lot more about alignment than just
Yeah.
yeah, than anything else. Yeah.
I love the perspective, man. Thank you. Thanks for digging in. This is why we don't script it out. I was interested to see where it went, and it was beautiful. Got me thinking of a lot more clarity and for myself on this, and just it's elevated the gravity for me, which that was my hope. So
Excellent.
thanks
And
for
me too,
meeting.
man. I enjoyed it. It's great. It made
Yeah,
me think a lot about my response to the
yeah,
world and my feelings about it and the pride I might have associated with it. And it made me think a lot about, like, what would I say that I want for my kids, and what
yeah.
I say I want the same for myself, because they're going to learn it from me. So there's a circle there I need to pay attention to.
I'll be talking about that circle with my family tonight, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I enjoyed it.